Right, I'm back at TeamSport Stockton and today it's a members only event, so I'm looking to pick up some pointers from the faster drivers to improve my time if I can keep up with them. No mucking about, let's get into it. That's right, we're back at my local indoor kart track where I'm going to be spending a lot of time this year trying to become a little bit better at karting. Now I'd say I'm a bit faster than the average person, just going off my previous times, but that's probably because I'm built like Kate Moss rather than being the neatest around the track. But today I'm wanting to get stuck in with some of the faster drivers to learn off them because what stands between me and climbing up the leaderboard is practice. We have a full grid of 16 again, and with this event taking place late on a Monday night, I'd imagine that the standard is going to be quite tough, so if I can break into the top half, I'm going to be well happy. I'm only with one other guy today, and that is Jim. He drives a 𝙁𝘼𝙊𝙆 GT4, which is hopefully going to appear on the channel over the next month or so, and out of all of my friends who come go-karting, he's probably the fella who sets the most similar lap times to me, even though his overall PB is a little bit faster. So he might not know, but we've got a 1v1 challenge on the go as well. Before we headed out, the juniors were on, and they were setting an average lap time of about 45 seconds. So that's going to be the target to beat, but I knew it probably wasn't going to happen in the first of our two 23-minute sessions because the majority of our karts were stone cold, and they were even struggling to get them started. But we headed out of the pits and got a feel for the track anyway. As always, the polished concrete on the ground floor felt super slippery, but there was a noticeable lack of grip on turn 7 before the up-ramp, which is usually quite sticky. Since this was a members event, I was fully expecting to be overtaken, so I stuck a GoPro on the back of my helmet too to look back at the areas where people were reeling me in, and I nearly caught Jim spinning out while he was warming up his tyres. That'd have been good, wouldn't it? The green flag dropped and we were underway, and instantly heading down the ramp into the hairpin, James let me know that he was there. Cold tyres and a hard braking zone, I just didn't stand a chance, did I? Definitely putting a claim in for that one. But I did nip back through after he sent it deep into turn 4 right before the yellows came out. I thought it was the standard yellow that they wave at the beginning of each session, but looking on the backwards cam you can see that it was actually someone spinning out. Then yes, I probably should invest in a 360 degree camera rather than having two GoPros on the go, but this was just a test, so leave me be. Now even though this was a members event, you can still tell that this was a mixed ability field, so you'll get to see which karts were fast and which ones were a little bit on the slower side as the video progresses. And I think number 3 might have been a fairly new member, as he was still a little bit hesitant on certain bits of the track, but that made it pretty easy for me and James to get by. Then we just had to concentrate on getting the karts warmed up. Not gonna lie though, I was really struggling to stick to my lines on the cold rubber, even on parts of the track that have the most grip, like the sweeping right and left turns of the first floor. So I decided to let James through because he was right on my backside to follow him and see where I was losing time. It wasn't long though before we started catching up to the karts ahead of us, and at this stage of the session where everyone's struggling for grip, the best place to get an overtake done is on the exit of a corner. I think it is anyway. So just like James, I made sure I got a good drive out of the bend, and that made the move a hell of a lot easier than sending it up the inside on the brakes. After a few more laps, the kart felt like it was pretty much up to temperature, and the grip was coming back too. I still need to work on following people because I'm leaving too much of a gap between me and the kart in front, which would usually mean that double overtakes like this are off the cards. But luckily, this time around I wasn't too far behind to make the move work. Again, me and James found ourselves having to squeeze by kart 3, who was taking some pretty good defensive lines. Only thing is though, he was dabbing the brakes through the corners, which didn't require any braking at all. Which didn't prove to be a problem this time around, but as you'll see later on in the video, it made it a little bit trickier to get past. Jim snuck past kart 13 and I thought that was the last I was going to see of him for the next few laps, but then this happened. I didn't really catch what went on there, but apparently a guy was facing side on as James went around turn 7, which you might remember me saying had a little less grip than the last time I was here. He slammed the anchors on, locked the rears and somehow ended up managing to spin the opposite direction of how you think you'd slide. Just to rub a bit of salt in the wound, right after I went past, one of the guys who was catching me up clattered right into him. He must have seen kart 13 sliding and decided to use his momentum to take the normal racing line around the outside of him. But with his vision blocked by kart 13, Jim was just a sitting duck, and by the time he'd seen him, contact was unavoidable. We got going again after the marshal pushed James off the barrier, and finally, with the car up to temperature and everyone being properly spaced out, it was time to start setting some hot laps. But just as I was approaching the first corner, the yellow flag started flashing again. Who is it this time? Oh, you're joking.
What are you doing?
Instead of creating a gap so I could go for a quick lap, the enjoyment of trying to overtake someone got the better of me, and kart 6 definitely was expecting me to go for a move into this left-hander rather than me tucking back behind him, so when he left the space he ended up on the slippy stuff, and then it was easy enough for me to slide past him. Not as easy as it was getting past this guy though. At this point I'm not sure how long we've been racing for, but it's the first time I've came across this guy in the purple suit, so I was expecting it to be a bit trickier for me to get past him. I thought I could do the old switchback on him, but he got really good drive out of the corner, and 2 doesn't go into 1, so I backed out with the move. I followed him for another lap and decided to go for a dive up inside into turn 2. Now it doesn't look the cleanest, but it was actually him spinning up his rear wheels that sent him into me, rather than me bumping him. What I wasn't aware of though was kart 4 sneaking through behind me, and as I went for a slightly ambitious overtake around the outside of turn 9, he used that opportunity to have both of our pants down. I knew he was quick, and the whole reason for me coming to this event was to try and follow people who were quicker than me. But even though I managed to get past kart 1 only a couple of corners after he did, he was already leaving me behind. Later that lap I made a mistake sliding into the barrier on the up ramp, killing all of my speed that I had going through the corner, so instead of holding up the people behind me who were obviously quicker, I decided to back off and let them through. This chap was a little bit easier to follow, still pulling away through some of the corners, but I felt like I was keeping up with him quite well, and I could tell exactly where I was losing time to him after following him for a couple of laps. Going around turn 4, he went around the outside of someone, which I've never seen happen at this place, and then I pulled off an overtake on the same fella going into turn 6, which you do see quite often, but usually on the exit of the corner rather than on the entrance, so I was well chuffed with that. The gap between me and kart 5 stayed about the same as we were closing out the rest of the session. I managed to put a few clean laps in, nothing to call home about, but the consistency was there at least. After a few more passes and a nice move going into T1, that was the end of the session. 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th was separated by less than half a tenth, and somehow I was the guy on top of that pack of 4. But there was a big jump up to 3rd position, so realistically I was going into the second session trying to get 4th again, rather than fighting for a podium. And I wasn't that happy with the time that I'd set either. I wanted to be touching the 43-second mark, but shaving a second off was going to be a big ask. Session 2 was a frustrating one. I started off at the back of the pack, so before I could get any clean or fast laps in, I knew I was going to have to manoeuvre my way through a few karts first. The problem was, I got stuck behind kart 3 again, who was unintentionally making his kart the widest thing on the planet, and he was taking some world-class defensive lines around the entire circuit. Now if you're trying to pass someone who's a bit slower than you, generally you get an opening at some point, but because there was a pack of us forming behind him, everyone was trying to make that move first, and it just meant there was no room for anyone to do that. I let someone else have a nibble on him. I think there might have been a tactical nudge heading around turn 3, and on the way to the long hairpin, kart 3 slammed his anchors on, so I just had to yeet it round the outside. Unfortunately for me, he let off the brakes and then pitted me, so I was stuck facing the wrong way, needing to be rescued. Once I got going again, I had to clear one guy before I hit some clean air, and that's where I set my fastest lap of the session. But that just meant I caught back up to the guy who just spun me out even quicker, and I really wanted to clear him before I gave him the opportunity to do it again. The space was tight and he was closing it off, but I'd already wedged my nose in, and as soon as we turned in, I knew I'd got the move done. Kart 6 was fully aware that I was right behind them, and dropping down the ramp into the left-hander, he sent it a little bit too deep, allowing me through. I spent the next couple of laps jostling for position in a train of 4 karts. I did make a lunge up the inside at turn 9, which was never going to work. It was a stupid attempt really. But just as it felt like the fun was all over and we were just about to stretch our legs again, number 3 was back with his unorthodox racing line, which was managing to hold back even the quickest driver on the track. So that made me feel a little bit better. Diving down into the tight left-hander, kart 4 made a move, followed by kart 7, and I just managed to get through before the door was firmly shut. And this is where I wanted to be again, behind the quick lads, but it only took 2 laps for them to gain enough time on me that they were no longer in the view of my GoPro. Bugger. It wouldn't be a TeamSport race without the obligatory red flag. This time it was down on T5 with 2 karts side on blocking the track. But once we got going again, I found myself behind Ashley, who actually works here, but today she's decided to show us all up, which was nice of her. She was the first person who'd overtaken me that I could actually keep up with, but just as I was watching her leave the track, number 2 snuck through on the inside. Good move. Another daft yellow flag was shown for someone spinning out, but they managed to get themselves away again, and when the lights turned green, Kart 2 squeezed through to make a double overtake on the inside of T4. But that left me and the quickest guy on track stuck behind, you guessed it, number 3. Not gonna lie, I was getting a little bit frustrated with the lines that this guy was taking, and I'll probably get some stick for saying that. But dabbing the brakes mid-corner with someone right behind you is asking for a collision. Saying that, I don't think he was doing any of this intentionally at all. He was probably unaware that I was even behind him. But you do get the odd person who does this on purpose, and you know, that's absolutely fine when you're defending hard in a race scenario, but when you're just trying to go for the fastest lap, it's a little bit annoying. Eventually, I did clear him, but by the time I crossed the line just to try and set one last quick lap, the checkered flag was out and we were rolling back to the pits. Now, I did improve on my time by half a second, but it was only good enough to take 6th overall. Not a very successful event for the old record book, but we did set a quicker time than Jim over both sessions, so, you know, you've got to take the little wins, haven't you? I didn't even see him in that second session, so he can't have made any more trips to the Shadow Realm, otherwise we would have caught him up. Anyhow, thanks for watching, especially if you made it this far. I know the karting content isn't for everyone, but I really enjoy making it, so it's here to stay. Hopefully we'll visit some other venues in the future soon too. Drop the video a like if you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment of where I should go visit next for a bit of karting, and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!